Welcome back. I have a mustache. Chandler has a kid. Surprise. Welcome back to Bet Haven, the safe place for safe plays. Back after a long hiatus of what the hell have we been doing?
Just winning in the last couple of weeks here.
Quiet winning.
Yeah, we haven't really been posting much, obviously, but I've already hit a JT Poston first round leader this year, and we both hit Harris English, white guys for Harris. We just hit that this past week. You had it pre-round, which was a great bet, and I got it at 30-1 before the third round. So we're hot.
Yeah, honestly, this is probably a good time to shout out the X, or, formerly Twitter. I know some people still call it Twitter, but follow us on X, because even when we weren't posting videos, I was kind of throwing out little, the last couple weeks with the Sony Open, the Amex, and now the Farmers, I was a little bit more, inclusive in what I was doing. And yeah, I touted Harris English and also Andrew Novak, who ended up being in the final group with Harris pre-tourney last week. So, and I think I had him at 125-1. I saw a lot of guys at 100-1, 80-1, whatever. You with the live bet at 30-1, which was a great live bet. But yeah, make sure you're following us on X. It's at the Bet Haven, same as all our other profiles. And if you're new here, if this is the first time you've ever seen us, make sure you check out the link in our description of this video. You can get access to deposit matches and various bonus bets across all the sports books available to you. So Chandler, like he just said, been kind of quietly winning. I think you've been hitting more on the NHL, NFL stuff. I've been playing a lot of NBA, and honestly, NBA was really good to me for a while, and it's gotten very difficult. So I'm very glad golf is back. And I had a heartbreaker with JJ Spawn at the Sony Open.
You did. You've already experienced the heartbreaker.
And honestly, I was looking at it because it felt so familiar when it was happening. I was like, why does this feel the same way that I felt before? And I went back and looked at it. All the people that I had with a chance going in to win last year, I had Wyndham at the Players 50-1. I had Mackenzie Hughes at Valspar 110-1. Homa at the Masters 45-1. Finau U.S. Open, and Hideki at the Olympics. All of them finished like third, and were either like winning at one point during the final round or just right there. And yeah, it was just a lot of heartbreak last season. I had 2 outrights in total last year. Starting off early with an outright this year gives me a lot of confidence going into it.
What's funny about those is a couple of those I can already, you just saying that, I can remember them. And I literally have Scotty like outright tickets on those, or at least like 100% DFS stuff.
Yep.
And he's just beating out your guys that you're like, that are popping, but it's just not enough.
Yeah, and I'm not alone there. A lot of people lost, out on a lot of money because of Scotty last year.
I jumped on, and hopefully you guys did too by listening, but I jumped on pretty early. Not super early in the year last year, but earlier than most.
Of like Scotty,
of just starting just accepting the Scotty dominance, and I rode it for at least the second half. I mean, I had him at the Olympics. I had him in other places where you just needed to just free play him on DraftKings. Almost, you needed to free play him and just say, okay, now I need to pick my 5.
Right.
That worked out quite a bit. I'm not sure if I will get to that this week. I'm very conflicted on Scotty coming off the hand injury for a player that, he's pretty handsy.
Pretty handsy. That man likes to get handsy. Just ask the Louisville PD.
That man is handsy, but we'll see if that's going to affect him. We're going to have to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, hey, I'm going with him. I'm going without him. I'm seeing right here in front of me still crazy ownership. He is projected at 40% ownership right now on DraftKings. That's a pretty damn high number for a guy coming off hand surgery who is $1,200 more than second as far as pricing goes on DraftKings ahead of Rory. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm conflicted. I saw maybe 5-1s out there as far as outright tickets. I won't be doing outright. This is something I did a lot last year, and I think about it. I probably said it, I don't know how many times last year. I won't be betting Scotty outright, but I'll have 100% of him on DraftKings just because I didn't feel like 4-1 was valuable enough. But to have him on DraftKings and know that he's probably going to finish top 10 freaking everywhere is
Yeah.
basically what happened.
Well, and you said it yourself, like you're putting up such a large amount on the betting side for Scotty. 4-1. A lot of it was last year was 3-1, and even below at some points.
And for high rollers that can afford to put hundreds of dollars down on Scotty or even thousands or whatever,
Right.
that's just not what we're gonna do on this show. Typically, we're putting 10 to 100 max on something on whatever bet it is. Usually golf it's less. Usually golf it's 10 to 25 or something because we're kind of scattershotting some first round leaders and outrights and stuff. So it's just not something that we're gonna do typically. We're gonna look for that value play. We're going to look for that 10 to 50 to 125. I mean, we're going to be looking for that number. So that's where we're at. Yeah, 40% ownership.
That's honestly way more than I expected. We're going into another signature event this week, AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Last year, this event was kind of weird because it was only 3 rounds, and a lot of people actually ended up making money on this tournament because I don't know if you remember this, but there was a lot of discussion during the final round or during the third round that the final round would either potentially be delayed or canceled altogether, and guys were going in and betting Wyndham Clark or whoever was, Wyndham was in first at that point, but there was also a guy who went and did top 10 of everybody that was currently within the top 10. And they ended up having to pay it out, I'm pretty sure. But
I think they paid out any bet that was made
while golf was being played.
So like a live bet essentially,
right?
Like during play of the third round, they did honor those. But those post round ones,
the people tried to sneak in there.
Yeah, they said no, we're not flying with that. But yeah, I did not do any of that. But kudos. I don't know if did either one of us have Clark? I can't remember.
No, like I said,
did we do a show for that?
No, because I think our first actual show together was one of the later tournament, like not later, but all those early Century and all that other stuff had taken place. I did a show by myself for Valspar. I think Houston may have been our first show together. But either way, we definitely didn't have Clark going into this, and I don't really know if we were still doing DraftKings at that point, but I don't think betting wise were we live at that point? I don't feel like we were. I feel like we came live like February-ish.
No.
For North Carolina going live with the betting. So either way, weird tournament last year. Honestly, this tournament to me is just weird in general. You got a really classic, iconic course, and you throw a Pro-Am into it, and now it's a signature event, which just adds a little bit more variance in my opinion. But there's 2 courses here, so they're going to play Pebble Beach and Spyglass. They used to have, Monterey was another course that was part of the rotation. They've taken that out, and last year and 2021 are the only times that they've ever done that. Obviously, we didn't get a full tournament last year, but I think there's some edge to be found. Certain guys playing Spyglass, certain guys playing Pebble, depending on how they break out the tee times. We don't have those yet. But I think we should just get right into it and talk about what we like for this course and
just real quick. It is a elevated event, like you said. There's no cut this week. They'll be playing Spyglass Hill and Pebble Beach. They will alternate Thursday, Friday, and then
the weekend
is all Pebble Beach. So there will be 3 total rounds at Pebble Beach. So that will be the majority of what you're looking at stats wise. That'll be kind of what I'm looking at stats wise. I've kind of profiled that course. Haven't really done so much on Spyglass Hill, being that it'll be 1 round, but it'll be kind of like, this will be my opinion. I think it'll be kind of like last week at the Farmers, they played the North course and the South course. And typically the North course is the easy course. The South is the harder one. But there was a kind of a weird scenario last week where honestly, there was a bad wave, in my opinion. I think it was much harder, and the stats would tell you that it was much harder to play South than North. Because North got hammered even harder by the winds on Thursday when they ended up suspending play. So there are guys that I think got a little bit hurt by their draw that maybe will be overlooked this week. But yeah, that's just my thought. But yeah, no cut. You're getting 4 rounds here. Personally, for me, that means I take more chances on your flyer type of guys, your guys that pop randomly, that have some win equity. I don't care about their floor, essentially. I care about their ceiling. I want to see what their potential is. Have they ever won? Have they come close to winning? I don't care if they're a cut maker in this tournament. I need some win equity. So that's what I'm kind of targeting this week.
Okay. Well, if you want to jump into some of your stats that you're looking at, we can start there.
Yeah, so the stats I'll be looking at this week, this course is Pebble Beach being a par 72, kind of mid-range yardage, mid to shorter range yardage.
It's pretty short. It's like
Yeah.
7,000. And
So 4 par 5s, pretty much all reachable. The stats that I'm looking for this week aren't so much driving. I don't really care about the rough this week. It's not as penal as last week. The rough was very bad. You did not want to be in the rough. You needed accuracy 100%. Harris English didn't really get the memo on that the last day by not hitting many fairways at all.
Four of 14 fairways.
He found a way.
Yeah.
Luckily, the guys up at the top were also kind of no-name goobers that just nobody really took advantage of it. Stevens tried to, but not quite enough, luckily for us. This week for me, don't care so much about driving. I care about wedges and putting, specifically hot putting. So my stats this week will be approach less than 100 yards, approach 100 to 125 yards, putting inside of 10 feet, scrambling inside of 30 yards, and one putt percentage.
Jeez.
It's all wedges. It's all putting.
That's the short course specialty stat profile.
So there's a couple names that pop up because of this. And there's one guy that I wasn't going to be on at all, but I have to be after seeing these stats, is Christian Bezuidenhout. He's the only guy that popped in 4 of these 5, and in the other one, he's 23rd in this field, but I'll just go through it. He's 14th in approach less than 100 yards. He's 10th. This is in this field. He's 10th in approach 100 to 125. He is 7th in putting inside of 10 feet. He is 1st in one putt percentage, and he's 23rd, so just outside the top 15, 23rd in scrambling less than 30 yards. You can get him 171 on FanDuel, and I believe he is 6,400 on DraftKings. Yes, he is going to be kind of my long shot play, my down the board play for DraftKings. Projected ownership right now looking at 3%. He just, his recent form isn't exactly spectacular, but this is a course that fits him perfectly. I mean, he's not a big off the tee guy. His stat profile would tell you that, but I don't really care about that so much this week.
Yeah, honestly, in some of my stat kind of deep diving that I've already done, I saw his name quite a bit. So I understand why you're going there. I cannot pick that dude for some reason.
Yeah, like I said, it's not somebody that I was like, you know how we have our guys, right? You have your guys that you feel comfortable with, that you like betting, that you think are maybe better than the public thinks they are.
I'm about to give you that name here shortly.
Right,
so,
and I have my guys and you do too, but he's not one of them. And this is purely a stats play. This is purely what the numbers are telling me, what is his game and how his game correlates to this golf course. That's why I'm going to end up being on it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But you know what? Hey, at least we're getting 4 rounds out of him no matter what. So I'll take my chances that in a couple of those rounds, and he's way down the board. So in a couple of those rounds, he can pop. And he'll allow me to get to guys like Scotty if I want to, or, other guys at the top of the board.
Well, I think, you just mentioned that this is purely a stats play. We saw last week, I would say that Harris English was not a corollary fit to what Torrey Pines typically requires golfers to do. So going completely in the opposite direction for that and picking a guy that is purely a stats play and good course fit the following week from, a win like that, I think that's actually a pretty good strategy. But yeah, Bezuidenhout, like I said, he did pop a lot. If you're going to be on him, I may have to tail just because I feel like that's just something that the last thing that I like to see is you having a guy in contention on Sunday. And I'm sure one of the last things that you like to see is me having a guy and you don't have them. It's just not a fun feeling. So yeah, I hate that you picked him because now I am going to have to, but I understand where you're coming from. So for the putting, I think it's kind of interesting because, I've seen all these conversations about, oh, this course requires, putter A or this hardcore putting prowess. And I just feel like, to me, like if you look at the last couple winners, I think Wyndham, like what's Wyndham? He's a pretty good putter.
He's a good putter. But to me, it's not only just like baseline putting. It is like
You're talking about like
hot.
spike potential.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who is that spike guy? Even with the iron, like, or not irons, wedges essentially. Who is that spike player that just like all of a sudden you just get so hot and you're like, oh crap, here he comes.
Yeah.
And Bezadenhood, as far as the putter goes specifically, and
Yeah, we've
even the
seen that
stats
for
would tell you
sure.
the wedges, but the putting specifically leading this field in one putt percentage, that's hard to ignore. So that's for me. But yeah, Clark, when he shot his crazy round that ended up winning him the tournament, he did make like an astronomical
Yeah, he gained
amount
a
of
ridiculous
putts.
amount of putts
So,
on Saturday.
it's not everything, but for me, that will be something that I'm looking for.
Yeah, like the last four winners here, you got Clark, Rose, Hoagie, Berger in that order. So like guys that aren't necessarily like at the top of everybody's list as far as like a player one, I guess you could
They're
call
not
it, but
superstars, but
yeah, I mean they're guys that
they're
can
there.
get hot. Like exactly, that's
Yeah.
kind of exactly what you're saying. What else you got? I mean, are we going players based off of that purely? You got anybody that you're touting outside of, the stat model outside of Bezadenhout?
Not outside the stat profile. I mean, I'll stay in the stat profile, but another guy that I really didn't see myself getting to, but I'm gonna have to based on what I'm seeing is Hideki Matsuyama. I don't love playing Hideki, especially when he's like playing a lot. It's not something he typically does.
Scary.
He kind of picks his spots and then contends, but for whatever reason this year he's decided to just go all out and play all these tournaments. Last week he had a bad wave. He was in the south north. So he got beat up basically by the south. He survived, and then he got beat up and survived the north when it got hit with all those winds. He made the cut, I think on the number or maybe just one inside. He made the cut, and then on the weekend he was okay. I think he ends up coming in.
He had a bad round 4, but
He ends up coming in 32nd, T32. Yeah. But if you deep dive the stats, he was number 1 in strokes gained approach average for guys who made the cut. So that tells me that he was still flushing it. He got a bad draw with his specific course that he had to be on, and he was a 0 putter. Again, this is only 3 of the measured rounds. So this one doesn't measure the north course that he would have played the second day. But still, you're getting 3 measured rounds here, and he was number 1 on strokes gained approach of the guys who made the cut, the guys who got 3 rounds. That's a big deal to me. That tells me that even though he finished T32, he still had an excellent week. He easily could have, if he would have got a different wave or made a couple putts, he could have been right there in contention.
Yeah.
So Hideki Matsuyama, beyond that, he is 10th in this field in strokes gained approach less than 100 yards, 4th in this field, strokes gained approach 100 to 125, and 10th in this field in scrambling inside of 30 yards. Clearly a very good wedge player, clearly a good scrambler. Small greens here at Pebble Beach. I think
smallest greens on tour.
Yeah, I think scrambling, putting obviously will be key, but more importantly than that, he is still, even with his 32nd place finish, he's still flushing the ball. He didn't like fall off. He's still hitting the ball well. I have to go back, especially knowing that Justin Thomas is right there, and I'm hearing a lot of buzz on Justin Thomas.
Yeah.
Maybe for good reason. But still, if you sit back and you think about it for a second, why would you play Justin Thomas over Hideki Matsuyama right now when they're like the same price? Hideki's actually
one.
He's 22 to 1 on DraftKings. I think JT's I think maybe lower than that.
He's down to like I think he opened around 17, 18. He's down to like 15.
I think the knee-jerk reaction is like, JT's playing good. He just finished. He did have a good finish, maybe second or something recently.
And he's chatting a lot.
He's talking. Yeah. He's feeling good. I get it. But Hideki's still balling right now. He's still playing good. 32nd place finish. it's number one on stroke gain approach. I'm going to have to take a chance here that he is just in his groove right now, and going to a course where wedges matter a ton, and he's one of the best wedge players in the game. Gonna have to take a shot there. So I will have some Hideki Matsuyama and hope that he does not WD.
Yeah, I did see somebody post that there's potentially going to be a wave advantage with guys playing. Oh, I gotta remember if it's Spyglass first, Pebble second. So Thursday Spyglass, Pebble Friday.
You mentioned that we don't have tee times yet, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
We're recording this on Tuesday. We do not have tee times yet.
Yeah,
so
and I keep looking. Like I feel like they normally release them on
make
Tuesday.
sure to follow us on X, and I'm sure Daniel will post something about first round leaders.
I'm gonna have first round leaders based on course. I've already got the guys that I'm kind of looking at, hoping that they're playing a certain course. So I'm not gonna give that out until that'll be on X. But yeah, I'm honestly, Hideki's one of those guys. I bet him a lot last year. So when you talk about guys that we like betting, I genuinely do like betting Hideki, except for the fact that, and you just said it, he's playing a lot. And honestly, the weather here is going to be a bit colder than what we would typically think of for Pebble Beach, at least in my mind. And with colder weather comes flared up injuries. And I bet Hideki to go, after I had him at St. Jude, I bet him to go back-to-back at BMW. He played one round where he gained a massive amount of strokes and then withdrew. So he does scare me in that aspect. But, yeah, I completely hear you as far as why he's a good fit here. And I think I could definitely see him winning. He's playing kind of out of his mind right now, even with the struggles last week.
Yep.
A guy that I'm really just like having a hard time getting off of, that almost sounded pause. Getting away from. There we go. He's chasing me. Anyways, Tony Finau opened up at 60-1. Well, I don't know if that was opening. I did see him at 60-1 for quite a bit on Bet365.
I think he's still there.
He's not. He's now 75-1.
Oh, wow.
And let me tell you something. I bet him at 60, and then I doubled down at 75. I don't know if that number is being based on the fact that he had surgery earlier this or late last year, but he's still, even post surgery. I think his first tournament since surgery was the Century, where he finished T15 maybe. I also just exposed this information to you. Tony had his 11th child. Not 11th, but he's got a buku amount of children.
he's the Phillip Rivers of golf.
He's the Phillip Rivers of golf, and he just had his whatever number. It's got to be like 6 or 7, maybe 6. On Saturday, I did see that on Instagram. So, and you mentioned it. Like, does that help or does that hurt? I don't think when you get to that number of child that it is hurtful. I think it's more helpful because it's not like you're anticipating something that you haven't been through. And even when you have your second child, I feel like there's still like a major amount of anticipation involved. When you get to 3, 4, 5, and possibly 6, I just feel like it's just like, oh, he's here, she's here, great. Like now I can focus on what I'm supposed to be doing. And Tony's had some struggles, with the putter. He's had some personal struggles with there's been like a lawsuit against him and his family for ongoing for some time. I just feel like at some point, the ball striking metrics that we saw last season, he was 4th from tee to green the entire year last year. The guy was just flushing it all year long, but could not putt. And he's had some really, really bad putting performances to start the year. He gained 1.2 at Century, and then he lost, and these are over one measured round at American Express because the only one course was being measured there.
He would have missed the cut.
Lost
there.
3 strokes putting.
Yeah, I'm seeing that he lost again one measured round because he missed the cut again at Farmers. He lost 2.16.
Yeah, so that's one round at each tournament where it's like if you just look at that on paper, you're like, oh god, this guy, he can't putt for shit, and that's sometimes the case. But I feel like we saw what he did at Century. He gained with the putter. I feel like we saw a couple times last year too, where he did the same thing, and he was maybe like 14th. If you're going off the stats that you're looking at, approaches inside 100 yards. You don't really think of Tony as a wedge player, but I believe he was last year 14th on tour with that from that stat, and he's probably not anywhere remotely close to that at this point. But in my head, I'm looking for positive regression. Guys that did things well last year that maybe haven't started the year doing them so well, they're going to regress positively, in my opinion. So that's why I like Tony a lot. And at 75-1, I feel like that's a foolish number in this kind of field.
Yes. I'm gonna struggle with it. He's a pretty good price on DraftKings. I think 8,200 off the top of my head.
That's cheap.
8,200 on DraftKings. The problem I have is my stat profile that I told you. It's a lot of putting.
Yeah.
Tony Finau in the last 24 rounds is second to last in this field, strokes gained putting. There has to be, we talk about it all the time about putting, about how, I actually like the good ball striker who maybe
Team
doesn't
no putt.
putt usually, but every now and then he does. We have to draw a line though, where eventually there has to be some sort of like, at what point is it broken? And this is borderline broken.
Yeah.
He is losing per round. He's losing a shot per round right now on the greens in his last 24 rounds. But the ball striking is there. He's gaining tee to green 0.6 shots per round. That's pretty good. That's not bad. And again, you're getting a discounted price. I'm seeing 14% ownership on DraftKings. Obviously, you mentioned 75-1. He has win equity. We've seen him win golf tournaments.
It's been a while, but yeah.
It has been a while, but he still has it, I feel. But he's just got to stop putting like he's blindfolded. I mean, there has to, you have to draw a line and say, oh, he's just going through a stretch, or no, dude, something is like seriously wrong. And maybe having the kid, maybe it'll clear up his vision a little bit.
And maybe, but to your point, or to kind of go against your point, I would much rather chase a golfer who has the tee to green play and like is consistently doing that. It's not like that he just flashed and is just a couple rounds he's striking the shit out of it. I would rather have or rather chase the guy that's doing that consistently and hope for a hot putting round than a guy that's just like on fire with the putter that typically doesn't hit the ball very well.
Absolutely.
That's just kind of how I look at it.
I 100% agree with that, but my point is that there has to be to an extent.
Oh yeah.
Like Justin Thomas, he is 68th in this field, strokes gained putting in his last 24 rounds. That's not very good.
No.
But he's like 4th or 5th in strokes gained tee to green.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is a reasonable thought to think, okay, if Justin Thomas has a good putting week, he could potentially win this golf tournament.
Right.
If he, gains a half a shot a round or whatever per round. That seems like less of a reach than Tony. But again, Tony's 8,200. He's not 9,800 like JT. JT's like we said 15-16-1. Tony's 75-1. So I get the point based on that. For me though, I'm probably gonna have to draw a line and say until I see it less broken than a shot per round, I can't. I can't get there with a guy who also he's kind of a longer hitter. And that's I don't want to say that's his weapon.
I don't think
he's a rounded golfer. He's a well-rounded golfer.
I was looking at this because I remember thinking that at one point, like this dude is a bomber. But if you look at his like metrics as far as distance goes, compared to some of these other, like I guess because right, I guess we're in this new era where it's like these TrackMan kids coming out, like they're just like Pot Guider or whatever his name is.
Yeah, he was a bomber. I think now it's like he's kind of like
I think he's just kind of upper middle.
Yeah,
yeah, like he still hits it far.
Maybe that's part of the reason he's not winning.
Could be.
I mean, maybe
you lose a little bit of the advantage there. Yeah.
If that was like your thing and now all of a sudden is not your thing and you're having to almost maybe you're forcing it a little bit with putts or something. I mean, I don't know.
I have a feeling he's going to win this year. I don't know where it's going to be. I bet him several times last year. He came close. I think he had a chance at the Travelers and then dunked it on one of the late holes.
I would just love to see him. Obviously you would love to see him win with your 75-1 or whatever, but I would love to see him have a 0 putting week. Give me a 0 putting week and finish 15th. And then we can talk about, okay, where are we at next week? Do I think it's a course fit?
Yeah.
Well, is he going to go to Phoenix or Scottsdale?
I don't. I think we've only seen a handful of commits to that. I don't think they have the full field out
That would
yet.
be
But
interesting. Like if he goes 0 putting this week,
I will tell you this.
finishes 15th, and then next week he's like 30 to 1 or
Yeah,
40 to 1. Like, okay,
yeah.
now we're talking.
And I am notorious for being a week
Yes.
early on a
Yes.
guy. I
Yes.
I should have pulled those stats up from last year of betting a guy and then he goes to win the next week.
I was a week
because,
early on Harris. I had him
Yeah,
I had him like covered on DraftKings the week before. He finished like
at MX,
he finished like
Yeah.
40th or
I
something.
I touted him first round leader and then he won. Guess who I touted last week first round leader?
I had Poston for that one. That's
Well,
right. I had Poston for Amex.
I had Siwoo Kim first round leader for Farmers. So apparently Siwoo Kim's gonna win this week, and I have bet him solely because of that pattern.
I
to
know
see if
his
it works out.
number is insane.
Siwoo's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet him at 100 to 1. I think he's up to 110. Maybe
He's another guy though. I gotta look at his stat. I don't know if he's broken or what.
So here's the thing about Siwoo.
No, he's not. His stats wouldn't say
His
he's
approach
broken.
numbers are not great.
Yeah, even last 24. I mean, maybe if I go like last
Yeah,
12.
if you go last 12, I feel like his approach
but
is
last 24 losing 0.26. Like that's not great, but it's not disaster.
Yeah. So outside of Tony, I have bet Siwoo, like I said. A lot of that is based on, again, these, in my head, just positive regression on things that I think guys typically do well that maybe they haven't done to start the season. And then the other person I have bet at 90 to 1 is a guy that you're not even going to like want to even bat an eye at is Ben On. Does not fit your stat profile at all. I think I'm kind of seeing there's a lot of golfers that I feel like, there's this course profile that like fit what they do well, and they can only win in these types of scenarios. And it's like, I looked at Ben On, and the reason I came onto him the first time, or in general, was I went to a lot of like course, compilatory course competitions, tournaments, whatever, RBC and some of these other places like that, the Canadian Open. A lot of the Canadian Open tournaments have like stats that line up with Pebble, and he finished well in those. And those are shorter courses. Like you don't really think of Ben On as like a wedge guy. You think of him as kind of a big driver, can get hot with his irons, but he so far has not been doing his normal thing very well. So in my head, I'm like, okay, if we're gonna get some aggression, maybe we can get some aggression across the board. And he has putted well at this tournament specifically. He's not a very good putter. Looking at his POA stats, purely POA stats, they're not great. But if you go to his tournaments here, I think he's gained both appearances in recent history. So I'm gonna pull that up real quick. But yeah, just a guy that I'm going for big numbers here. You know me, I'm a kind of a big time shooter. I don't like betting the guy that's 45 to 1. Give me the guy that's 100 to 1, and I'll put like a little bit less on it. But yeah, last year he gained 1.1 strokes putting, and the year before 0.67 strokes putting. So not a good putter, but clearly has some favor to this location. So
All right, I'm just gonna rattle off 3 of my mid-tier plays DraftKings wise. I think they're straight up just boom potential guys that I like. Number 1, we'll start at the top of the board. It's $8,000 Shane Lowry. He was in the what I'll call the bad wave. He was playing with Hideki. I think he missed the cut on the number. But you look into the stats, he hit the ball fine. I think he also, in his one measured round, he gained 1.36 on approach, lost 1 stroke putting. That's a profile that I can get behind. Getting a little bit of a discount here, $8,000 on DraftKings. He is second in this field, strokes gained tee to green last 24 rounds. I have no problem. He's a wind player too. If we get wind, he does not mind the wind, obviously.
I don't think we have any on the forecast, but you know how quickly that can change.
Yes, he is he's a potential boom guy. We've seen him win tournaments that maybe he ain't supposed to win, but he has that potential in him. Currently projected ownership 8.5%. I will be in on Shane Lowry. Next down the list is Tom Kim, also sitting at 8% ownership. He is 12th in this field, strokes gained tee to green, last 24 rounds. I didn't watch TGL last night. Did he win or lose? You don't know.
They won. They won in overtime.
They won.
It
Really?
was like a chipping contest.
What?
Yeah, it was weird.
Okay.
I only saw the highlights of it because I watched a lot of the regulation stuff, and then
I saw like a quick highlight where it was actually like a good match. Like there was like actually putts being made on the green. And,
Tiger and Rory
saw,
kind of going back and forth, and then I think the end was like a weird overtime thing where they were like chipped onto the green, and I don't know if it was like close. I didn't see the full thing, so I don't know like what the rules were, but somebody missed the green, and they're like, "We won, we won!" Like they were like Tom Kim and Tiger, and they just had no idea they had won. And Tom's like, "Wait, we won."
That's the problem with TGO right there. That's the problem. It's just not for me. Like I hate to go on a tangent here. It's not competitive enough. It's not like like they don't. It's like buddies having fun, which again, that can be.
I think that would be more entertaining. I think it'd be more entertaining for a guy like me and you to go to a simulator and
my god,
try and
somebody build it, and it would be nonstop people in and out of that place. It's too expensive for anybody to build, and I think make money off of probably. But it's super cool and it's fun.
I think it's.
But it just I cannot take it seriously as far as like I need them to want to win, and the couple times I've seen it. I just don't see like them wanting to win. I see them like just having fun.
Yeah, I genuinely
it's fine for some golf fans, but for me, I need you fucking sweating. I need you like just like knee knocking over that 5-footer.
I would rather watch YouTube golf than TGO. Like that's just to me. That's like it's that same type of banter and same like what you're saying. It's less competitive, but it's like they're out on these ridiculous courses hitting ridiculous shots.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't need to see pros like step up to a screen, hit it 350 down the middle, and then, obviously we saw Kiz shank one out of the or skull it out of the bunker, but other than that, like it's just pretty kind of
it's fun,
monotonous.
But it's not competitive enough for me. Anyways, Tom Kim, I liked him before his match last night. I still like him. Him and Rory are both gonna have to hop on a plane. I'm sure they did that last night.
Tiger had jet waiting out there for him or something.
Yeah, for sure. So they definitely hopped on a plane after. I'm sure they're there now doing their practice round. But yeah, Tom Kim, when you think about Tom Kim, he's a potential boom guy. He has not played particularly well to start this year.
Yeah.
But I know that it's in him to
be great.
Yeah. And he also is kind of like a potential boom putter, like a one putt percentage kind of guy where he can get crazy high with the putter. We've seen him do that. So I will take my chances on Tom Kim. And then the third guy on the list for me is Akshay Bhatia.
I was hoping you were going to bring him up.
Akshay is 12th in this field in strokes gained approach, less than 100 yards. And he is 4th in this field in putting inside of 10 feet. Those are two pretty good stats to have for this specific golf course. He also doesn't mind wind if we get wind. He also played on the DP World Tour recently, made the cut, had a pretty week, somewhere around, I don't have it in front of me, 30th or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I think he finished at 1 under or something like that.
But he had I don't know if you saw the highlights of this. He had a very weird scenario in which he played the ball out of bounds intentionally. He hit. It was a caddy. Well, it's kind of both of them, but it's going to follow the caddy. He hit his drive up the left-hand side, and it was a par 5, and there was a hole on the left even further, like through the trees. Well, instead of playing back towards the hole that he was on, he played to the left, to the other fairway.
I've seen you do that a handful of times.
Yeah, well, that's great because we don't play OB like that. But there was like a course rule that left on whatever hole this was OB because they didn't want guys intentionally hitting their drives over there and then going for the par 5, cutting the angle essentially. Well, he didn't know that. He punches out to the fairway on that side, gets over there, and all of a sudden an official comes barging up in the golf cart and goes, "What happened here?" And actually goes, "Oh, I was over there. I chipped over here to I can get back in play."
Damn, I did not.
And the guy goes, "You're OB." He goes, "Huh?" And his caddy's getting a yardage, and he hollers up to him, "We're OB?" The caddy's like, "Huh? It's not on the sheet. It's not on the sheet." And the announcers are going, "It's on the sheet. Look at the sheet again. It's on the sheet." So
that's messed up.
He ends up making like a double or something, but he obviously overcame it. He overcame it and still made the cut. I think this was on like Friday. He overcame it, still made the cut, looked at the scorecard. He still made a ton of birdies. I think he ended up shooting like even on the day. My point being, Akshay probably played better in that tournament than his results would lead you to believe.
Well, and I think we have said his name a plethora of times on this
Oh,
show.
we're Akshay stands.
I
Yeah.
believe, and I know that you believe this, Akshay is going to take a step forward this
I
year.
think this is a big year for him. Yes.
He should have had more than one win last year. He should have won. He did win Valero. He should have won Rocket Mortgage, where he 3-putted on the final green to either miss out on a playoff or I think he missed out on the playoff because of that. He kind of came close at Travelers the week before Rocket. The guy is a legit golfer. He's a legit top player in the world. I could not believe the number that I saw at I think he's like 85-1.
Last I saw, he was 80-1.
Yeah, and
I don't care what golf course he's on.
80-1. Yeah,
I don't care.
Well, and we saw him
who he's playing. 80-1 for this type of talent is insane to me.
We saw him have an opening round of I think 8 under here in 2021. I remember watching that round specifically because he hadn't really broken out onto the scene yet.
That was when he wasn't quite me and you talk about in our group chats and stuff, guys like being professional golfers.
Yeah.
He wasn't like professional yet. Like guys that are professional, like find a way. They don't screw it up.
Right.
They don't make a double when they're trying to make the cut or like something stupid. They don't let a bogey affect them. He wasn't really a pro back then. A bogey, and all of a sudden you make another bogey, another one, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're off the rails.
Well, and I still think there's a learning curve for some of that stuff.
I think this year will be the year that we see him manage those bad rounds. That's what these true, I caddied for a while. I got to see what a true professional golfer looks like, and they find a way to shoot even or whatever on their bad days so that they still have a chance to make the cut. They still have a chance to make a top 20. And I think that he's going to take a big step forward on days like that. But regardless, either way, his ceiling is like, what do we think in this field? He's like top 10 in ceiling.
This is what I think ceiling wise, my prediction for Akshay, and I've seen a couple other guys talk about him. There's a lot of people like big bettors, guys that we watch and follow that know Akshay and bet on Akshay quite a bit. I've heard them mention that he has the potential to win a major this year. I don't know if he can get there, but I absolutely think and expect him to, and I will probably every single time that there's an elevated event like this, will bet on him to win because I do think he will get a signature event this year.
I am going to put a decent amount of money on him to win the Masters this year. Lefties, distance.
What did he finish? He finished
hot potential putter.
T25 maybe last year at the Masters.
Think about the lefties, man. Think about like Bubba in his prime. Think about Phil. Think about who's the Canadian golfer that's old? He's a lefty. Can't remember.
Weir?
Yes.
Yeah.
It favors lefties. It really does. And, when you have that talent and you have that distance to take advantage of some of those par fives, we won't get too in the weeds here, but I will be betting Akshay to win the Masters. I think I actually saw recently like 100-1 or something.
Okay, but in that same breath, 100-1 to win the Masters and 80-1 to win this golf tournament, that doesn't make sense to me. You're not... And a course that we've seen him go low on. Like I just feel like that number is silly. I already
even
bet
sillier
it.
Is 5% I'm showing.
I did see that also. I don't understand.
5% ownership.
Maybe there's something that I'm not seeing that other people are or other people know.
I will say that his stats currently, like last 24 rounds, they don't jump off the page. They're pretty meh. Like
but we know that he can get
but I don't care. Yeah,
he can flip the switch faster than just about anybody.
I'm not seeing anything like too red. I'm not seeing anything too green. It's pretty mid, but I don't really care about that. We're at the beginning of the year here.
Also, cut, so we're getting 4 rounds.
We're getting
regardless.
no cut. We're getting him at 7,380 to 1 to win the golf tournament. I'll have it outright. I'll have him on DraftKings. I'll take my chance that he finishes inside the top 20 at 7-3.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really all you need for him to be potentially valuable on your winning DFS team is 7-3 top 20.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my third mid-tier guy that I think has win potential.
Well, there's a lot of guys that we haven't talked about, and I'm just going to rattle off some names, and I want to get your just brief thoughts on this. We'll try to cut this. I don't know what time we're at, but obviously we talked about Scotty a little bit in the beginning, coming off the injury. What are your final thoughts on what you're going to do with Scotty?
I'm going to probably be a little underweight. I'm going to have some just because he's number 1 in this field, strokes gain approach 100 to 125. He's number 3, strokes gain approach less than 100. Putting, he's not actually like in the top 15 anywhere putting, but he's a very good wedge player. I'm not going to get to 40% of him.
What would you say, like 25?
Yeah, probably like 25%. He's fifth in this field, strokes gained tee to green last 24 rounds. I'll be underweight.
You got Rory, Morikawa, O'Bear.
Rory, I will have none.
I could see Rory winning a random ass tournament like this, where there's just no sign of him about to win, and he wins this tournament.
Maybe, but I'm not gonna pick Rory in a wedge fest. I want to pick Rory when driver is more important. So that's why I'll have no Rory this week. If he beats me with wedges and putting, so be it. I'm not getting there. Aubert, I had like 100% on DraftKings last week. I had an outright ticket. I was looking like a genius for about a day and a half, and then he started yuking everywhere. He was sick. He fell off the map. I think he finished like 30th, 40th, something like that, pretty far down the board. I'm not going to get back to him this week, even though I do still love his game and think that he could potentially win at a place like this. Just think about if he was really that sick. That wasn't that long ago. Think about if you're like actively puking and you're like losing fluids and you're having to travel and all this stuff.
Well, they're not going very far, but
I don't see him like immediately jumping back out on the golf course and being 100%.
No, I mean, you're talking to somebody that's been dealing with illness for the last.
You just don't get back to 100% like that, especially if you're continuing to go outside and do physical activity. You're not going to get to that point. Like how young and fit you are, it just doesn't work like that.
I think some of the initial reports were that he had the flu. But then now I'm hearing that a lot of the guys were dealing with a stomach bug, which is a completely different thing. Because I agree with what you're saying. If he did have the flu or had some sort of illness like that, but a stomach bug, I feel like you can recover from pretty quickly.
Yeah. So my point would be, he's potentially not 100%.
Yeah,
he's maybe 80%. And two, another guy that the driver is his weapon. Him hitting it long and straight is his thing. It's not going to be that important this week. You can hit it short. It doesn't really matter.
He did finish second here last year, so obviously
he's a fantastic golfer when he's 100%. But I'll take my chances that we are taking the driver out of his hands, and he's maybe not 100%.
All right, you didn't. I think you skipped over Morikawa there. What do you got?
Morikawa, I'm going to have. Morikawa is going to win soon. I'm sure you guys remember end of last year, Morikawa was on fire and just could not win.
Yeah, a lot of runner-up finishes.
Second. He's got to win at some point. It could be here. This sets up pretty good for him. 11th in this field, strokes gained tee to green, last 24 rounds. Green across the board, off the tee, approach, around the green putting, all green. 18% on DraftKings. I'm going to have some Collin Morikawa. I will be overweight on Collin Morikawa.
All right. And just to kind of cap off the rest of the guys at the top here, looking at Cantlay, Burns, Fleetwood.
Cantlay, I'm going to end up having as well. My Cantlay radar isn't exactly the greatest.
Mine's terrible.
But I'm going to have some here. I think this is a good course fit for him. But he's such a flyer. Burns is another one. I think I'm going to end up with some Burns just because of his ceiling potential. We've seen Sam Burns just like lock in, and he can win golf tournaments. I don't care who he's going against. He can win golf tournaments when he's playing his best. His stat profile is pretty okay. He's very good putter. 1-putt percentage, he is number 2 in this field. So that's something to look out for. Who else did you mention up there at the top? Like I said, Matsuyama I'm going to have. Fleetwood, I will not have. Going to be a wait and see. Fleetwood is just
bad
like
course history.
Bad course history. And Fleetwood, we all love him, and he's a very likable guy, but
hasn't won shit though.
He doesn't really win.
Yeah.
This is not. I don't want to bet him in a no-cut event where I need win potential. I don't see him winning. He could potentially finish top 20 or whatever, but that doesn't really do you much at 9,100. Justin Thomas, real quick, got top of the board. I'm going to have some. I'll probably be with the field, I think. He is flushing it right now. He's feeling good. You're seeing a lot of confidence from him. He's doing everything but putting, and putting hasn't really been that bad. It's just been kind of bad. Could see him potentially sitting on a big week, but we'll see.
Last guy I mentioned just because he's cheap on DraftKings relative to his ceiling. Coming off of wrist surgery from last season, Jordan Spieth.
Yeah, Mr. AT&T himself. Man,
You don't know, do you?
Yeah, I don't know. Right now, I've actually I'm in the 18 max. I've built about like 10 of those, and I don't have any of them. So that tells me I'm probably not going to get to them. But I wouldn't say that you're dumb if you decided to go for it. What is he? 7,000,
7-9.
7,900 on DraftKings. Um, you know, it's iffy. Your strokes gained last 24 rounds tee to green is 0.14. It's 57th in this field. His putting hasn't been great, but it's such an unknown coming off of surgery. First week back, is he coming back early because AT&T
Right.
gave him a sponsor's exemption?
And we saw
sponsor's exemption this week is Ricky Fowler and Jordan Spieth.
Just those two.
Just those two.
So how did Minwoo Lee get in the field?
He must be top 50.
There's no way.
He must be
in points.
Yeah, or world ranking or something. But Spieth for me, it's going to be a no. I'm showing 12% ownership, which is actually a little higher than I would have thought. The only thing I'll say about Jordan Spieth is that he does have good course history here. This is kind of a Jordan Spieth course where you can spray it around all over the place and then hit a miraculous wedge or make a 20-footer, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's stuff that he does.
Minwoo is 53.
He's a pretty good putter too. 53rd
in world ranking, so he must have gotten in as an alternate.
Okay.
But yeah, I just saw him like in the field. I'm like, what? Like he hasn't won anything.
He's better than you think.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, as far as guys at the top, I think we've covered some of the guys on the low end. I don't really have much else. I think some of these odds are insane. One of the things, and I'll just mention this really quick because this really stood out to me, and he's the last guy on the board for betting. It's Brendan Todd. Like, you go from like just 0 to 100 with this kind of stuff. Brendan Todd finished second at this tournament 2 years ago, and he's the last guy on the board at plus 60,000. I just think that's insane. I'd never bet him, but for a guy like Eric Van Rooyen to be in front of him, Jake Knapp to be in front of him, I just think that's hilarious to me.
Out on all three of those guys.
Yeah. Is there anybody that's way, way, way down the board that you would even consider looking at? I see Brian Harmon is like.
Yeah. So obviously I mentioned Bez. He's 6,400.
His betting number, you said I see 175 to 1.
Okay, good. Yeah, I got I see 170. I haven't bet it yet, but 175. Yes, Harmon. Harmon just is one of my guys that I trust, and he also has boom potential.
Yeah,
he's won golf tournaments that people wouldn't think that he would ever win. Another guy that I hate to kind of say it, but he's like way down the board is Lucas Glover. 6,100. Lucas Glover actually does pop in these stats a little bit, especially considering he's 6,100. He is second in this field in approach less than 100 yards, and he is fifth in this field approach from 100 to 125. That was kind of shocking when I found that out.
I am convinced,
putting wise, that he's whatever, but he can get hot. So
I am convinced that an older guy is going to win this tournament. And I wish that Matt Kuchar was in this field because I don't know what it is. And Glover's kind of like the only true candidate for that. And Glover, maybe Adam Scott would fall in that category a little bit. Day. I'm just convinced that like an old head, unk status kind of golfer is gonna win this thing.
Billy Horschel.
Like how old is Shane Lowry?
Yeah, he would fit that.
I feel just like we've seen so many young guns and like all these bombers just kind of come out here and just run the table a little bit. Like when's the last time an old head, a true old head?
Is Keegan an old head at this point?
Oh,
I think he kind of has to be, right?
Yeah.
If he's the damn Ryder Cup captain.
You seen that mustache on him?
You got to kind of be of age. Yeah.
I mean, even like JT and Spieth aren't there yet, but they're older than we think. I mean, they're older than like.
Rory.
Shit, Rory's like 50.
Rory's got some grays. Rory's got some grays on the side if you look closely. Yeah.
I'm just really thinking that one of these kind of, and I might have to just play that, outside of the ones that I've already bet. Tony would fit that to me a little bit. I mean, that dude's got 17 kids. Like you have to be old head for that status.
A lot of kids.
But yeah, I mean, I don't I don't like the signature events. I'm actually really excited for us to do a show without that kind
Yeah, for
of.
DFS purposes, I do like a cut.
Yeah,
But you
because you
just have to
can.
play it. You have to play it that way. You have to
Right.
play the boom guys this week. That would be my advice. Play these guys that in your head have crazy pop potential. JT Poston, I didn't mention. This is another. He's a putter. He's a wedge
Yeah.
guy. He's been actually been playing pretty good this year so far too. Just guys that you think have the potential to go low.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to need this week.
Well, hopefully we can go back to back. I'll post all of the once we have the full card kind of out in front of us. I'll post that on X. I'll get mine, and if you have any bets out, I'll put yours up there as well. So make sure you guys are following us there. If you're not, it's really simple. At the Bet Haven on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Now that it's not completely shut down, and yeah, we're just gonna keep rolling. Hopefully, we can get some more wins under the belt and help you guys do the same. Got anything left?
No, I'm gonna try and now that we're back in the groove here, try and get some TikTok for NHL stuff. And I think maybe we should do a little something, even if it's just a quick video
Super
for
Bowl.
Super Bowl,
Okay.
maybe some props or something. But yeah, that's all I got. Good luck this week, guys. Pick your boom golfers and hope that they just make everything they look at.
Yeah, that's the key here.
Mhm.
We'll see you next time.